Good morning, everybody. Good morning to everybody online, everybody in this room. So as chairman of Paris EUROPLACE, I will just tell you a few words to introduce this session. Dear Minister Le Maire, who is in video, dear Commissioner, thanks very much to be there. And it's my pleasure on behalf of Paris EUROPLACE to welcome you today for the 6th edition of the Climate Finance Day. And I would like to address my special thanks to our international friends and eminent speakers for joining us, even virtually. Thank you also very much to the Minister Bruno Le Maire for his strong support year after year. Today's event is fully dedicated to the theme Sustainable Finance, how to reboot the European real economy. In this context of special crisis, I would like to strengthen two messages. As far as you know, the climate change and how to cope with the climate change is one of the main priorities of Paris EUROPLACE to have a special stamp for the Paris way to do finance. So these two messages are there. First one, public authorities, financial institutions and firms have worked relentlessly to support the economy through the crisis and are now joining forces to develop strong ways of strengthening the leadership of Paris in post-Brexit and post-crisis Europe. We try to demonstrate that Paris marketplace is together efficient and effective, knowing that the toughest challenges lie ahead. My second message is that the EU27 has met the crisis challenges in the context of the action of the European Central Bank and the European Commission. And the Green Deal is an opportunity to draw post-COVID Europe. We must imagine new responses for tomorrow's world, namely by advocating responsible investments and sustainable growth, by transforming our economies and by accelerating innovation and establishing strategic industries in Europe in order to preserve the European sovereignty in the global economy. Keeping in mind that all the parties, investors as well as the businesses with each sector's specificities, must be concretely involved, like in the elaboration of the European taxonomy. And I insist on this point, if we want to be strong, we have to be very involved in the taxonomy debate to be sure that it will not be the field of game of all the ayatollahs of the planet. Business need transition period, and investors need to understand which are the needs of the business. So I urge all the people in this room and all the people on video to be involved as much as possible in the taxonomy debate, taking in account both the interests of business who needs transition and for sure investors who need a clear framework. This forum, which is organized by Finance for Tomorrow, the Paris EUROPLACE branch dedicated to green and sustainable finance, will focus on the EU policies as well as local issues. We, with Thierry Déau, the chairman of Finance for Tomorrow, we felt the great need to also showcase public and private financial mechanisms and tools available or to be designated to meet the needs of the different sectors of the European economy. For sure, extraordinary times need extraordinary action. To conclude, I would say that the raison d'être of the Paris Financial Center is to develop a financial industry that contributes to a more sustainable world and job creation, that serves society and the real economy with a positive impact on the planet. So it's clear for us, sustainable finance is at the core of the strategy of the Paris Financial Center. To conclude, allow me to reaffirm Paris EUROPLACE on finance for tomorrow's determination to contribute to a green recovery that serves a sustainable social and economic development. I wish you very interesting and stimulating debates. Thank you very much.
Good morning, everyone. So, dear Minister Olivier Grégoire, thank you for stepping up for Minister Bruno Le Maire this morning. And dear Augustin, dear Commissioner McGuinness, ladies and gentlemen, welcome to this Climate Finance Day, which is sort of the final day or almost of this week of Finance Climate. That started on Monday. So I'm very happy to welcome you to this 6th edition of the Climate Finance Day here at the Palais Brongniart, and fortunately we still have a few people that were able to join physically this event, but I believe we have about 800 participants online, including our MC, attending this meeting, so thank you for staying mobilized despite the circumstances. I also like to have a special thanks to all the colleagues from the Financial Centers for Sustainability Network. We've been co-chairing this network with Shanghai for the past 2 years, and our mandate as co-chair is now ending, and I want to congratulate Toronto with Jennifer Reynolds and Casablanca with Lamia Mirzuki, who will take over the co-chairs for the next 2 years. It's important for this network to keep working together, and I think the climate is not an issue that we can solve in one single financial place, so it's something that's quite important to be able to collaborate and promote things together. A quick look back at 2020. It's been a crucial year in many ways. I mean, obviously, the crisis, the pandemic, and it's been a real shock. It's reshuffled the cards, but in a way, we fell back on our feet on something that is quite positive. Sustainable finance, through the strong policies carried by the European Union with the Green Deal, has a role to play, and the reboot of the economy will be green or will not be. I believe that at least the European member states have pretty much agreed on that since April, and they've done everything possible to carry that message. 2020 is also the 5th anniversary of the Paris Agreement, and as almost every year, we can say that we're not yet there. We're working very hard at it, but we haven't really reached the goal to really be on the trajectory of the carbon neutrality by 2050, and it's quite important that we remain mobilized to do so. We've chose today as a theme the ability of the Green Deal, the Europeans to actually be able to reboot the economy through sustainable finance, and how finance can actually fuel the economy and help the transformation to a low-carbon economy. That is quite at the middle of our concerns. Yes, there's climate, but there are also issues of social transition, and all these will require quite a lot of investment in Europe. So we will need to mobilize nearly trillions to reboot our economy and to transform it into an economy that is sustainable. and it goes way beyond climate because we have to have a holistic perspective on this reboot that includes social issues and other issues. The Paris Financial Center during this year has really mobilized on this topic, and we've accomplished quite a lot. And today, I'm very proud to announce that as part of the European Finance Project, a LIFE project that has been launched in Paris last year, we're actually launching today a Sustainable Finance Observatory to be able to showcase and to be transparent on how the Paris Financial Place is actually contributing to those commitments and how the place is engaged in providing solutions to driving our economy into a more sustainable economy. It is an important step, and I know that it's always easy to criticize, and I've already had a number of NGOs asking me why it's not perfect. But as I always say, the best is the enemy of the good sometimes. But the most important thing, I think, for this observatory is to allow the place to be very transparent. We have nearly more than 350 institutions, financial institutions, that were able to provide in a transparent way on a portal that is accessible to everyone their commitment in relation to climate, their commitment in relation to responsible management of investment, their commitment in relation to exiting coal, and other type of commitments that are quite fundamental into bringing our economy to a low-carbon economy. This is the first step, and every year we'll be able to see progress, and hopefully every year we'll be able to see more people joining this platform and the entire Paris financial place, and probably the entire European financial system committing to show what they do and acting to achieve what they say they want to achieve. So that, to me, is a big step in relation to the transparency that is required to really build trust with the citizens, because in a way, finance, when it really speaks in its bubble, can be rather useless. Our goal in defining an economy that is sustainable is building this relationship with the citizens, that they believe that actually whatever amounts of trillions that we're discussing actually end up through the pipes into their daily life. And that's an important message for me this year. We need to think about solutions, but we also need to think on how we touch the citizens of Europe. So thank you, and today we'll have a pretty healthy debate. We have a number of good guests that will be contributing to this debate. And thank you all for attending today. Thank you.
Good morning. My name's Sagarika, and I lead on climate change at the Principles for Responsible Investment. I'll be your master of ceremony today, joining you from the London head office of the PRI. It's my great pleasure to welcome you to this 6th and hybrid edition of the Paris Climate Finance Day. And this is the flagship annual event, Finance for Tomorrow. Thank you for all of you who are participating in person at the Palais Brongniart, and thank you to all of you joining virtually. In this difficult time of COVID, we are very glad we are all together to advance climate finance. Just like last year, Paris 2020 Climate Finance Day and all of you are supported by the President of the French Republic, Emmanuel Macron, and by the French Minister of the Economy and Finance. Today, PRI has over 3,000 signatories in 50 countries around the world, with over $100 trillion in assets management. Reaching net zero by 2050 is a priority for PRI, and we're delighted to be celebrating this day. Europe alone, PRI has over 1,500 signatories, representing 50% of the PRI signatory base. My role is also to lead on finance at the COP26 high-level champions. Finance for Tomorrow, the French and global investment community are important players for a successful COP26 in 2021. And I'm joined today as MC by Pierre Ducret, who's in person with you at Palais Brongniart. Pierre is advisor to Déau, Chair of Finance for Tomorrow, and Special Advisor for Climate Change at Caisse de Dépôt Group. Pierre is also the founding chair of the think tank Institute for Climate Economics, I4CE. And just to also make sure you know, Pierre was a key organizer of the first Paris Climate Finance Day in May 2015, just before COP21 and the Paris Agreement. 5 years on, as we approach the Paris Agreement anniversary in December, and as we look to the future decade, to new leaders in climate finance, I'm delighted to be collaborating on this year's Paris Climate Finance Day with Pierre. I'd like to go over some quick housekeeping points. First, for attendees in person at Palais Brongniart, please remember to wear a mask to protect others. All information about IFAR and the app of the event is shown on the screen, and you can tweet using the hashtag CFD2020. You can also get headphones for the translation of the evidence. And for our virtual online attendees, please just click on the language button on the screen for translation. Finally, in terms of timing, we'll have sessions and a coffee break at 11 a.m., 4 sessions, a lunch break, 12:45 to 2:15 p.m. We then have some parallel sessions till a 3:30 p.m. coffee break, more sessions, and finish at 6 p.m. So just to say a little bit about why are we here? What brings us together in person and virtually despite COVID? And why do you belong in this conversation? Well, our theme for today is sustainable finance, how to reboot European real economy. Let's face it, locally and in the EU, we face a triple crisis: public health, jobs, and climate risk and biodiversity. The EU's actions are critical to setting the pace of action internationally and to demonstrating we can embed transition to net zero in a COVID recovery. The EU must and can lead the way, and finance is a critical enabler. I'm delighted to see the launch of the observatory today, alongside recent finance developments, as Augustin mentioned, the EU taxonomy, and also the Non-Financial Reporting Directive, Sustainability Disclosures Regulation, the EU Climate Law, and the 2020 COVID Recovery Package. PRI's published an EU climate policy briefing with recommendations for real economy change, including 55% emissions reduction, carbon pricing, prioritising zero carbon power, road transport, buildings and industry. Today will be dedicated to exploring further not only the policies that governments must take within the EU, but also the actions needed by the private finance sector and all of you. So with that, I'm delighted to introduce Mairead McGuinness, Commissioner for Financial Services, Financial Stability and the Capital Markets Union at the European Commission. Over to you, Mairead.
Bonjour à tous, bonjour Madame la Ministre, bonjour Monsieur Dieu. C'est un grand plaisir pour moi avec vous aujourd'hui, même si ce n'est que virtuellement. Climate Finance Day is a well-established and globally renowned annual event, and I'm really pleased to be part of it because it demonstrates the financial system's commitment to sustainability. And in my new role, I find it really wonderful that I can join you virtually, but I hope at some stage we can also meet and discuss these very important issues. France has demonstrated a very long-standing commitment to sustainable finance, and this year's theme is at the very heart of what the European Commission is doing, and indeed my own priorities. I believe that sustainable finance and the renewed strategy on sustainable finance that the Commission is preparing will play a significant role in rebooting the European real economy, the subject of your conference today. So let me talk about the context that we now work in. There are two developments that have dramatically changed the finance landscape over the past year. First is the European Green Deal, which is a top priority for the Commission, and the European Union is determined to achieve climate neutrality by 2050 and reduce our emissions with even more ambitious targets for 2030. We've also a set of major reforms on broader environmental objectives, from the circular economy to zero pollution, the farm to fork strategy, renovation wave, to name just a few. And then secondly, as already has been mentioned by the previous speakers, we are in the COVID-19 crisis. And this is destabilizing our societies and our economies, and not to mention our healthcare systems. Some have reacted by labeling sustainability as a luxury. That's not possible, only in good times. And they say we should postpone action on sustainable finance until the crisis has passed. In fact, they see only a status quo recovery. But let me be very clear this morning, the COVID-19 crisis cannot be used as an excuse to delay addressing the challenges of climate change, environmental degradation, and biodiversity loss. We should look at the European Green Deal as a green and sustainable growth strategy that can strongly contribute to our recovery. Delivering on the Green Deal requires mobilising at least €500 billion per year of additional investment in the European Union. These investments will be a source of new economic and employment opportunities and will help us recover from the crisis. The Next Generation Recovery Package presented by the Commission in May will mobilise €750 billion to help Member States. President Ursula von der Leyen announced in her State of the Union speech last month that 37% of Next Generation EU will be spent directly on European Green Deal objectives. And she's also set a target of 30% of Next Generation EU funds to be raised through green bonds. We're taking green finance to the next level. The momentum for sustainable finance, rather, could not be better than it is today, but we have a lot to do. So let me take a look back and review the tools we've already had at our disposal. The Commission presented its first action plan on financing sustainable growth in 2018. As a result, we have put three important pieces of legislation in place: the taxonomy regulation, the disclosure regulation, and the climate benchmark regulation. These provide markets with powerful new tools. They foster transparency and improve the integrity of the rapidly growing market for sustainable financial products. Technical work is ongoing to complete their implementation. Many of you are starting to use these powerful tools, which is very encouraging. The Commission is preparing the Delegated Act on Climate Taxonomy to provide companies and investors with the certainty and the criteria to identify activities that contribute to climate mitigation and adoption. And we want to adopt these by the end of this year. The second Delegated Act on Taxonomy for the other four equally important environmental objectives, circular economy, pollution, biodiversity, water and marine resources, will be adopted by the end of next year. Europe is already leading the world with ambitious policies, driving the transformation of the financial sector. We need this, and we need it fast. We want to integrate sustainability at every step of the financial value chain. And this is why the Commission is preparing a renewed sustainable finance strategy for early 2021. The 650 responses to our consultation show that expectations from citizens, companies, and financial institutions are very high. And while the specific actions are still being developed, I want to assure you that the renewed strategy will be both ambitious and comprehensive. It will build on our 2018 action plan and explore new ways to mainstream sustainability in the financial and corporate sectors in Europe and globally. The strategy has to deliver three things. First, it needs to strengthen the foundations for sustainable investment by creating an enabled ecosystem. One tool is the upcoming review of the Non-Financial Reporting Directive to enhance sustainability disclosures by corporates. Another will focus on examining how sustainability ratings work and promoting long-termism in investments. We need to better connect long-term targets with short-term actions while bringing clarity on transition pathways in the meantime, and this has already been mentioned. Secondly, we need to increase opportunities for citizens, financial institutions and companies to have a positive impact on sustainability. So how can we mobilise retail investors and citizens? How can pensions and savings be invested for the benefit of our next generations? We should also look at how to better align toolkits supporting private and public sector investments. We need to highlight and create the right incentives so private capital flows to where it's needed, and we have to make it harder to finance activities causing significant harm. To accelerate the green transition, we'll develop a reliable, voluntary EU green bond standard and a legislative proposal in the first half of next year. And I think all the finance sector is eager to see that. And then finally and thirdly, climate and environmental risks need to be managed and fully integrated into financial institutions and the financial system as a whole. The interaction of climate, environmental and other risks could result in substantial shocks in the century ahead. Wildfires, storms, droughts, crop collapses are already happening, not to mention the risk of pandemics. This, combined with biodiversity loss and climate change, could cause damage to our financial system. And this is why stress testing, scenario analysis of risks, and developing a new framework to keep risks manageable will be key. Here we will be inspired by the important work of the Network for Greening the Financial System. In addition, the COVID crisis reminds us that we cannot leave behind the social, the S of ESG. We want to make the social element more important in our strategy. The public and private sector experts in the Platform on Sustainable Finance are already assessing how a social taxonomy could work. The Commission will also put more emphasis on the G, on governance, via a new initiative next year on sustainable corporate governance. And finally, we need more attention on the global dimension. A year ago, we established the International Platform on Sustainable Finance, a group of like-minded jurisdictions representing about half the global population, half of global GDP, and half of global emissions. The platform works to understand the various emerging frameworks and how they can converge. Indeed, we celebrated the first anniversary of this initiative 2 weeks ago and published a report on progress so far and the next steps. In parallel, we're continuing to work on the relevance of the sustainable finance agenda for developing countries that are already severely impacted by the consequences of climate change and environmental degradation. We need to support these countries in their transitions and mitigate negative effects as much as possible. So in closing, I want to highlight and thank France for being at the forefront of sustainable finance policies. France was one of the first countries to issue green sovereign bonds and incorporate climate risks into investor practices. And this year, France has carried out a groundbreaking exercise to map part of the budget against the objectives of the EU taxonomy. These measures are very important in taking forward discussions at the European level and should be applauded. This work in France and at EU level will contribute to a sustainable recovery. I know that France shares our objectives, and I count on your support for an ambitious, renewed sustainable finance strategy. I wish you all a very fruitful event, and I look forward to listening to the Minister's speech. Merci.
Thank you, Commissioner. You can't hear the applause, but the room is actually full of it.